G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smithson's Photography. So, challenge number 2, 5 of clubs, far horizons. The reason I put this one in is because far too often we just take for granted what's in the background of our images. And because I shoot seascapes a lot, the horizon is often in the background. When you're shooting mountain landscapes and so on, there's no defined horizontal horizon. There might be an edge where the mountaintops meet the sky and so on, but that in itself has some interest because of its shape and potentially the shadows and the light falling on them and so on. But in seascapes, the line between the sky and the sea is obviously just going to be a flat horizontal line. So how can we try and make it interesting, and how can we be concerned about it and aware of it whenever we're shooting? So that's what I'm trying to do today as I went down to Indented Head on the Bellarine Peninsula. So let's have a look. Well, good morning. I'm at Indented Head this morning down on the Bellarine Peninsula. One of the beauties of living near the beach is that you always have a horizon. But the challenge is to make it interesting. Sometimes just an abstract shot of the horizon flat with the sea and the sky makes an interesting shot, but you can try and make it more interesting. So what I'm shooting today, and I'll just turn the video on, is the wreck of the ozone just off the shore here at Indented Head, but with the city skyline of Melbourne behind it. You could just shoot the city skyline, but that would be fairly boring, given that it's 45 kilometres away, and even in early morning before sunrise there's a bit of haze, so you can't see the buildings clearly outlined. There's a few building lights on, but mostly they're turning off, but what I'm waiting for is the sunrise, which is going to happen behind me, to light up the sides of those buildings, and then to add some foreground interest, to shoot with the wreck in the foreground. So I'm going to line up a few compositions here, take a few frames and wait for the light. Okay, so let's have a look at this first image. So this is the shot that I took early on, just after sunrise, and you can see that the light is starting to hit these buildings, and there's this beautiful pinky magenta haze across the horizon. And what caught my eye immediately here was the cloud cover coming down to but not touching the horizon, and then this mountains in the background, and the haze giving this beautiful colour, and the contrast between the pinky colour here and the aqua blue colour of the sea and the indigo colour of the clouds. I could have shot, as I said in the video, and we'll just crop it down like this. I could have shot just like that. That in itself could be an interesting photograph, but there's just not enough interest for me in the city skyline. It's just too far away, and the haze makes it just indistinct and unclear. So if we go back to here, I could have decided to drop the horizon interest completely and concentrate purely on this wheel. The wreck of the old paddle steamer is an interesting thing in itself, and because it always has birds on it, they make it another point of interest in it as well. And the horizon itself just sort of disappears, and there's a nice bit of colour in the sky there. But what I wanted to do for this exercise was to concentrate particularly on the juxtaposition of the horizon with whatever other subject there is there. Now, in this original point of view, I think there's just too much separation here, and there's just too much sky. The separation here means that your eye is bouncing from the bottom left corner back to the middle on the right and backwards and so on, and the sky is really just pointless. So I moved about 15 metres to my left, which more closely aligned this paddle wheel with the city skyline. And you'll see from the next image that I took that I also moved the horizon line up by dropping the camera down a little bit, or pointing it down a little bit, so that I was getting this horizon closer to the middle. Now, you hear all the time, don't shoot with the horizon in the middle. But if you can make an image that is strengthened by having the horizon in the middle, then it's worth doing. So we'll have a look at how I went shooting that. I'm trying to shoot the wreck with the birds on it in that bottom left corner with the city skyline of Melbourne in the background, to emphasise the distance between the foreground here and the horizon. If you just shoot the horizon as it is, you have no sense of distance. Giving something to scale in the foreground gives you an idea of the distance that horizon is away. Particularly when you're shooting over the sea, there's nothing in between to indicate relative distances between things. I've been shooting with a 6-stop neutral density filter on to reduce the shutter speed to about 30 seconds. Not that that improves the shot greatly, because it's quite a flat sea and a blurry sky anyway. But there are so many fishing boats going past that it's difficult to have an exposure without them in there, but they're moving, so the 30-second exposure means that they will just blur themselves out and you won't notice them in the shot. So I'm just going to turn the video off here, and as the light is hitting the buildings in the background there, I'll take a couple more shots. Alright, that's one without the filter on, and now I'll just put the filter on. And as I do that, some pelicans have just come past. So I've missed those, but so be it. Well, as the light is changing rapidly, as it does at sunrise, I'm now shooting at 13 seconds, not 30 seconds, so I've got more than twice the amount of light I had a few minutes ago. But that looks quite good. So sometimes serendipity just comes and smacks you in the face. As you saw, some pelicans came and landed on the water right in front of where I was shooting, but unfortunately I was changing filters at the time, so I couldn't get a shot of them as they landed. However, when I'd finished shooting this last shot, I went down onto the beach, hand-holding the camera with the 70 to 200mm zoom on it, and tried to get some shots of the pelicans with the city skyline in the background. Fortunately, one of those pelicans swam right in front of me and allowed me to get the pelican, the paddle wheel and the city skyline all in the same shot. You'll notice that even though I'm at a narrow aperture of f/16, the bird is so close to me that the background, the paddle wheel and the city skyline are blurred. But they're not so blurred that they're unrecognisable, and sometimes you can use that to focus on the subject but still have the background recognisable, so it adds context to your image. So have a go at doing that. Concentrate on the horizon, but think about how you want that horizon to appear and anything on that horizon to appear in your final image. So remember, pixels are free, so get out there and shoot. Bye.